Hey team, Yasin here, and in this training we are going to be talking about coaching call number 6, becoming version 2.0 self. We're going to go ahead and talk about all of the details so that way you can go ahead and actually do an amazing job delivering coaching call number 6 inside of your practice calls. As always, we are continuing our theme inside of this module of putting your transformation program together. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. Of course, we have the training outline there. Of course, we are going to go ahead and, as always, talk about organization equals organization. Just a quick reminder to make sure that you are actually keeping your coaching call notes organized. That is going to be very important regardless of how you do it. It's important that you do it, period, because if you do not actually do it actively, you're going to have a difficult time actually keeping track of your students' goals and whether they're making progress, XYZ, etc. So very important to go ahead and make sure that you do that, all right? From there, I want to go ahead and talk about your practice training modules. Of course, at this point, you are an expert at this, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this, but overall, the biggest thing you want to remember is that all of the scripts that we are going over inside of Module 5 are meant for only one purpose, and that is to be your training wheels for you to be able to find your voice. And so do not get married too closely to the topics or even the curriculum or the structure. Mainly understand the principles behind the topics in the curriculum, and then from there, it will start to go ahead and come together more, because this is the done for you, do it yourself approach. So that way you can actually have momentum, and that way you can actually get that forward progress, which will allow you to eventually be able to go ahead and make it your own. Okay. And so from there, of course, we are going to be walking you through in module 6, the intake form, how to send that over to your student. We're going to give you the intake form template, all of that. So that way you can actually meet the student where they are at, and you can have all of these practice calls and all of these scripts in your tool belt. And then of course, you're going to be coming up with your own and being able to mix and match and make everything awesome. And then you're going to share with the other RWA students, and then you're going to be able to learn from how other students are doing their own setups and their own scripts. And so as a whole, we as a community, we as a family are going to only get better and better and better throughout this entire process. So take what it is that we are providing for you now, take those foundations, take those scripts, practice it, find your voice, so that way ultimately you can be successful with this. Okay. From that, I want to go ahead and talk to you about coaching call number 6, the overview of this. So inside of practice call 6, what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to go ahead and talk about practicing helping your student become their version 2.0 self. So inside of this practice coaching call, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be walking our example student through all of the pieces and all of the work that is required to actually put together their becoming journal, right? So in the last few coaching calls, they were designing their North Stars, they were putting all of that together. And so now after all of that hard work inside of this coaching call, they're going to go ahead and put that together inside of their becoming journal. So that way it is actually able to be in one place. So that way they can get to work actually reprogramming their identity. Okay. Now I'm not going to dive into this, but of course, as always, you do remember that this does not have to be specific to coaching call number 6. Ultimately, this is your bank. And then once you take notes on what you liked, what you didn't like, what type of explanation you liked, what type of explanation you did not like, of course, you know so much more than what is inside of these coaching calls because you've actually gone through the in-depth training of this in previous modules earlier in the curriculum. And so maybe the way that we are describing it, maybe the scripting that we're providing right now, you give it a shot, right? Because ultimately you do want to make sure that you do give whatever it is that we provide you a shot, right? Give it a fair shot. So that way you can maybe get used to some new language patterns, some new words, all of that kind of stuff is going to be very important for you. And then over time, right, you obviously have the initial training that you went through in module 1, module 2, module 3, all of that you can go ahead and pull from as a toolbox to be able to actually develop your own curriculum from this content, right? And then ultimately the opportunity that we are providing you as Remote Wellness Academy and the certification is, in addition to all of the amazing transformation that you're going through on your own, the other opportunity, right, in addition to all of the amazing things that already we are providing, is that you're getting the opportunity to be able to practice this with other students, right? You're inside of a container, inside of a vehicle that is allowing you to be able to practice this so that way you can find your voice. We're facilitating that entire process as you go through this, okay? And then from there, of course, I do want to go ahead and point out that throughout the coaching calls, you are going to need to make sure that you do use your coaching skills that you have learned. The in-between is going to be very important for you to pay attention to, okay? And then from there, of course, student action notes. This is going to be specific to coaching call number 6, the practice coaching call of this. Of course, as you start to tweak your own curriculum in upcoming modules, as you start to work with students, all of that, you're going to be able to design your own student action notes. But you want to go ahead and take what it is that we are providing for you right now. So that is going to be available for you, and we'll walk you through how to send that to your student in upcoming modules as well, okay? The same thing goes for the coaching call guide. The coaching call guide is also going to be specific to the practice training modules, and then you will be able to customize it for yourself. So the images and the pictures and the logos and all of that, as long as you do have the student licensing agreement in place, we will be walking you through how to be able to edit that and then make tweaks to the images and all of that as well. And so I'm sure all of this at this point you are an absolute expert on. So we're going to go ahead and keep on chugging through here. Of course, make sure you zoom in and zoom out so that way you can get the most out of this explanation. Of course, at this point, you're like, okay, we get it already. Get to the point. Because the job of the script is to give you the tools and the ammunition. Everything is inside of the script, but you pull and take from it according to what it is that you need to practice. And so let's go ahead and hop into coaching call number 6. The explanation, of course, the rapport section here is going to be the same, just a reminder for you to make sure that you don't linger here. Build a little bit of rapport, kind of keep it going, and don't linger here for too long, okay? From there, of course, we get into the what is going well section. We're continuing the ritual of that. Now, if this specific coaching call, this is going to be specific to coaching call 6, is that if this specific coaching call is directly after the designing your North Stars, which I don't know why it wouldn't be, but let's say, for example, it wasn't, or it is that you can go ahead and ask the question here about what are some of the benefits that the student has noticed over the last week as a result of becoming clear on their North Stars and actually putting pen to paper in terms of what it is that they are looking for in life and who they are looking to become, right? So you can go ahead and always make that first question in regards to part number 1. You can always make that specifically around what happened over the last coaching call, right? So what's going well, you can go ahead and continue that. Make sure you go ahead and really make a big deal over even the smallest wins, because that is going to be important. And we've definitely hammered that over the last few coaching calls. Okay. So from there, we go ahead and move into part number 2, which is challenges and obstacles. And nothing new here as well. Of course, for you, as you're going through these practice calls, as I've said many times before, is you want to go ahead and pick different scenarios, right? For different types of students, right? Maybe in the last coaching call, you, for your partner, your RWA student partner, you were pretending to be somebody who didn't have any obstacles. And then this time you go ahead and act as if you did have obstacles. And then your partner does the same thing. And so as a result, you're kind of rotating, even though these parts and these scripts are kind of staying the same. You don't want to just skip over them. Remember this is very important. You do not want to skip over these, because if you skip over them with your partner, then you're not going to get the practice, A to Z practice, right? And so you want to kind of pick, okay, in this specific situation, I'm going to go ahead and act as if I am a student who had challenges, right? And then your partner's going to do that for you as well. And so what that allows you to do is it allows you to be able to practice different variations of the coaching sequences around the obstacles. And then your partner can actually do the same thing for you, right? And so that way you're able to give each other real feedback. And then guess what? Along with that is that, let's say, for example, you went ahead and you're like, cool, I'm going to go ahead and pick this one to practice in this practice coaching call. Well, maybe some of this stuff doesn't flow the same way that, you would say it. And then all of a sudden you start to kind of iterate, you kind of start to tweak, you kind of start to give different examples. And then all of a sudden, instead of you having 12 parts, maybe you found like 7 other parts that work better for you. And now guess what? Voila, you have now a coaching question sequence around obstacles that you've created yourself that you can now start sharing with your partner. You can share with other, partners that are coming up. You can go ahead and share with your RWA family. And now you're seeing how your own methodology, your own voice is starting to come out of this because of your own coaching style emerging from you being able to take the foundations that we are providing and then being able to really tweak it going forward. And so that is the important note that I wanted to go ahead and mention here in terms of the obstacles and kind of the section here. So like I said, part 1 and part 2, for a lot of these coaching calls, they're not going to change tremendously, right? When I say they're not going to change tremendously, I mean that they're not going to change in the training and the explanation here in module 5. They're not going to change that much here. But in terms of when you are actually dealing with students and when you're actually doing it on the practice calls, on that end, it's going to change tremendously. And so you want to make sure that you do not skip over this, right? You want to make sure that you are actually practicing this, and then we will go ahead and provide you more of a bank towards the end of this module as well. And then of course, coaching on obstacle, it's highly likely as you're going through the program that is going to come up, especially in coaching calls 4, 5, and 6, right? This is kind of like the middle area where students will tend to self-sabotage. That's what we talked about in one of the principles. And then of course, coaching the student on being able to approach this with curiosity, childlike curiosity, is going to be extremely beneficial as well. Okay. And then of course, a pro tip on using the word or the sound to be able to do that as well. Okay. So again, we do not want to overwhelm you. Kind of pick whatever works for you right now, and then the bank will be available for you in the future. Okay. So that is that section there when we talk about part number 2, which is challenges and obstacles. From there, we're now going to go ahead and hop into the new information piece, specifically of coaching call number 6. Of course, as always, there is going to be the important note on dialogue there, and then you are going to go ahead and start by getting permission. So, hey, okay, ready for something new? Are you ready to move forward? Whatever it might be. And then you can go ahead and communicate from there. And then you're going to go ahead and go into the part that is going to introduce the becoming version 2.0 self. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start off here and say, okay, cool. So at this point, we've now gone ahead and on paper, we have our North Stars, right? We have our clear what, we have our powerful why, and we have our version 2.0 who, right? So clear designing our North Stars, we have all of that designed on there. And so now that we have a general idea of where we are going, which is our what, why we are going there, and who we need to become in order to effortlessly create our dream life, well, what's next? So what we're going to go ahead and do now is we're going to go ahead and get busy on becoming that person. Because remember, as long as we become that person, then all of a sudden the outcome is going to take care of itself. But the question is, how do we actually do that? How do we actually reprogram and rewire our brain to become this new identity? Well, Tina, what do you think the answer to this is, right? What do you think we would actually do in order to actually help us become this new identity, right? And then kind of wait for the student to try and guess. Obviously don't get caught up in their guess. It's just for dialogue purposes only. But again, you can see even like this question here, I skipped it, because it doesn't go with the flow of as I was speaking. So I just went ahead and went over it. So I'm kind of like ad-libbing here, kind of following the script. And so it's very similar to that. This is kind of the skill, right? Skill equals knowledge times reps, is that this is the skill of being able to utilize a script, being able to utilize kind of like something that is a guide, but then also still being able to ad-lib and be able to add into that, right? And so then the student kind of tries to guess. And so the answer is that we need to now remind ourselves and repeat what we have in our North Stars over and over again until it becomes second nature to us. So what does that actually mean, Tina? Well, let's go ahead and talk about that right now, right? So it means that this new identity that we went ahead and put on paper is not going to become our default at the snap of a finger just because we wrote it down. In fact, it's the opposite. This new identity that we worked so hard to be able to put on paper on these worksheets, right, can actually easily get lost, and actually we will easily fall back into our old identity. Why? Because the pathways in our brain are actually more used to the old identity of who we used to be. And so our brain is still stuck in that old identity, right? We still have the old identity brain. And so you can kind of think of it like a fire in a match, right? And so you're going to go ahead and show this image. And because you obviously are doing it in a one-on-one setting, even though you are showing the image, you're still using the script that is going along with it, right? So you're kind of showing this image and then you're describing the image with the script that is going on there, right? So it's like, okay, when you first light a match, it's like this tiny flame that is easily able to go out even when the wind just blows on it, right? And so what we got to do is, what do we got to do? We got to protect it with our hand, right? Just like in the image. But the more that we nurture that fire, the more it will grow until eventually it can live on its own. And so even though we've put this new identity on paper, it's just like this flame that we have to protect, right? We have to kind of grow it. We have to nurture it. And so for this new identity that we've created, the question is, how do we actually nurture it and how do we actually protect it? The answer to that is by repeating it over and over and over again enough times over a long enough period of time. And when we do that, we literally rewire and reprogram our brain to create new pathways in the brain. It's crazy to think about, but we can actually rewire our brain at a physical level in order to become this new person through repetition, right? And so visually, this is what it looks like. And initially, it kind of starts off as like, hey, this is very new for our brain. There is no pathways in our brain for that. It's kind of like that match that we have to protect. And then the more we repeat it, right, through repetition, the more we repeat it, it starts to become a little bit more of a stronger pathway. And then eventually, with enough repetition, it really starts to become a new way that our brain is wired, right? The synapses in our brain start to be able to change. How crazy is that, right? And so there's a lot of neuroscience and evidence behind this, but you don't got to worry about and knowing all the details. This understanding that you're getting is more than enough, right? And so you can kind of think of it like stacking rocks in your brain, right? It kind of looks like this. And so just I'm breaking the frame here to talk to you guys, is that for you guys as RWA students, again, you're going to show this image, right? You're showing this image here, and then you're walking through kind of the scripting around it to be able to explain the image, right? So once we've designed who you are becoming, we have to get busy stacking rocks and casting votes. Every time you consciously choose a different action, behavior, or thought that is in alignment with the person you are becoming, basically what you're doing is you're stacking a rock. You're basically casting a vote of who this new person is going to be. And so when you start off, because we've repeated our old identity over and over and over again, there are a lot of rocks rocks on the side of our old identity. But the thing is, the more that we repeat the new identity, when the votes add up, the rocks stack on, right? The more and more rocks that we're adding here, then the evidence starts to change, and the story that we start to tell ourselves also starts to change. Our identity starts to change as well. And so new identities require new evidence, because if we keep casting the same votes that we've always cast, we're going to get the same results that we've always gotten. And so if you keep stacking rocks on the same side of the scale, then guess what? You're going to have the same identity. And as we already know, is that if you have the same identity, then you're going to have the same outcomes in your life. Okay. And so a quote that I really, really like about this is that you can have more than you've gotten so far, because you can become more than you are right now. Right. And so it's all about being able to cast those votes from there. Right. Are you with me so far, Tina? Yes. Okay. But the question with all of that is, how do we actually manage this process of repeating this over and over and over again in an organized way, right? What is the tool that we can actually do to be able to do this precisely? You see, Tina, this is the reason why so many people, even if they talk about, most people don't even talk about identity change and being able to transform your life and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, they're all stuck in the tactics and the tools, and they give you the meal plans and all that kind of stuff, right? Most people don't even get to this point. And then the few people who even talk about being able to get to this point and changing your identity, even those few people don't break it down in a way that's actually actionable, right? Because a lot of this stuff you can see kind of from the surface level sounds very mojo jojo, woo woo, right? Like, how does this actually happen? And so this is my goal here for you, Tina, inside of this program, is to actually understand this process in and out, right? To be able to understand the exact science behind it, so that way you can go through your own transformation the same way that I've gone through my own transformation. And then that way you can actually help step by step by step anybody else in your life to be able to go through the same transformation as well. How cool is that? Now I'm going to break frame here. You can see this was not at all inside of the script, right? But it was something that I was ad-libbing to be able to add to this, because I felt that there was a little bit of a need there, right? And so obviously you can go in and type what it is that I just said and kind of add it in there if you feel that it is relevant and if it was helpful. But really that's kind of how it works, is that as you're going through the scripting, you're going to find places that you're like, you know what? This is going to be helpful for this student. This is going to be helpful for this student because the student told me this in a different coaching call. I'm going to add this going on here, right? And so that's something that is possible to be added there, okay? And so then you say, cool, well, what's the tool that we can actually use in order to do this properly? Well, Tina, this is where I want to go ahead and introduce you to the Becoming Journal. The Becoming Journal is the most ultimate tool that you will ever learn in your toolbox of the becoming process for brain training and identity reprogramming. This is the thing that makes it so different, right? And so the Becoming Journal is the culmination of thousands of hours of research and development over the course of the last decade to find the best way to package in one place the entire becoming process, okay? I'm telling you right now, my coaches, I've used this thing, my coaches have spent so long being able to put this together, and it has taken them literally learning from the best in the world in terms of personal development, in terms of neuroscience, in terms of goal achievement, being able to learn from the best in the world to be able to put this together in the way that it is. And I'm so super excited to be able to share this with you, okay? Because the Becoming Journal is the one-stop shop where all of the work that we have been talking about in terms of designing yourself, it's going to be where we take all of that hard work and all of those North Stars and all of those worksheets, and it's going to come together in one place that is going to be organized, so that way you know exactly what it is that you need to repeat, you know exactly what it is that you need to look at every single day in order to move you inch by inch closer and closer to becoming this new version of yourself that is effortlessly going to be able to create your dream life. Now, just a quick note on that is that, a lot of people hear, Becoming Journal, and they think that, they have some negative connotations around journal. I don't want you to worry. It's not a journal the way that you think about a journal would be. The reason we call it a journal is because you do kind of edit it regularly, but it's not a journal the way like, I tried journaling and it didn't work in the past, right? So what I'm going to go do right now is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to walk you through what the template of the Becoming Journal looks like, TBJ as an acronym. And we're going to go ahead and walk you through that, and you can go ahead and see how powerful this is, and it kind of puts everything together, right? And then of course, you're going to go ahead and share your screen here, and there are 9 pages that are total in the Becoming Journal. You go ahead and walk them through that, and then you go ahead and explain to them. Either you can use the images that are inside of here, or you can just show them with the actual slides that are available as well. Is that, okay, so we're going to take that worksheet that you had about your clear what, about the health and what you wanted, your vision, right, the 12-month vision for that, and we're going to take all of that, and with images, we're going to actually put that onto the what page inside of the Becoming Journal, okay? And then from there, we do the same thing with the why, okay? We're going to take our why, and we're going to go ahead and summarize it, and with images, put that on the why page. And then we're going to do the same thing with the identity of the who, right? Because then we know, okay, this is the person that I need to become. This is what they look like, their character traits, their beliefs, their strengths, their routine, their physical appearance, their nicknames, their code words, all of that this is the person that I am actively becoming. And you can have images and all that kind of stuff on here, a picture of yourself, you can have a picture of a mentor that kind of reminds you of that version of yourself that you're becoming, that is reminding you of who you are becoming with your reality that you are looking to create, okay? And so you go ahead and explain that in detail to the student from there. And then this is the ultimate tool to become your new identity. This is how you actually rewire and reprogram your identity to achieve what it is that you want in life, okay? And so this is what starts the cycle of self-fulfilling becoming, okay? This is what we call the becoming cycle. And then of course you can just show the picture while you are explaining this. And so what you're explaining here is you say, okay, so what happens is that every single time that you go through your becoming journal, it starts to influence the actions that you take, and then also then influence, because the actions that you take influences the experience and the results that you get. And then guess what? When the experience and the results that you get are transformed, you're able to go ahead and feed that back into your becoming journal as evidence that you're actually moving closer to this person that you're looking to become. And then guess what? That feeds back around and it helps you take even more action and more proper action that's in alignment with who you're trying to become. And then after that, it actually goes ahead and impacts your results. And then it becomes this cycle that just feeds itself. It's a virtuous cycle. And that is how it actually works, right? Right now, you start off as your version 1.0 self, but then you do your daily becoming journal work. And then over time, you're becoming your version 2.0 self, right? And then over time, that becomes your new current reality, right? So what used to be out of reach for you, what used to seem impossible for you, what used to seem like your dream, that now becomes your version 1.0 self. And then you go ahead and create that new identity for yourself in the new season of your life. And then you go ahead and evolve one more time. And so that is the becoming cycle, and that is the becoming process. And that is how all of it feeds itself, that allows you to be able to get more and more results in your life. So that way you can get to where it is that you want to go. Does that make sense? Yes, that makes sense. Okay, now stick with me here, Tina. I know there's a lot that we're discussing here today. These are really some of the most dense coaching calls, but they are some of the most transformational coaching calls as well. So what I want to go ahead and do right now is I want to go ahead and talk about the importance of this, right? This is so important because like we already talked about, unless we reprogram our identity, we will continue to stay stuck with our current life. We must become our new identity, because that new identity, that new version of ourselves is the one that is going to effortlessly create the dream life for us. And so unlike what most people do, what we do inside of the becoming process, what we do here at NutriFit Wellness Academy, what we do here in this transformation program is that we don't focus on the outcome or the dream life or the desired reality directly, right? So many people say, okay, I need this desired reality. I'm going to focus on that directly. Instead, what we do is we focus on becoming the person, because when we focus on becoming that person, once we focus on transforming ourselves into somebody who is a new version of ourselves, the way that we think, the habits, the behaviors, right? The thought processes, all of that, then guess what happens? Indirectly, our dream life happens automatically, right? And then of course, this is a side example that I'll go ahead and give you right now, kind of just throw this in here for you as an RWA coach, is like, okay, hey, if there's somebody that's 250 pounds, okay, and then all of a sudden they have an identity of being 250 pounds, it doesn't matter if we went ahead and help that person get down to 150 pounds, if they still have the identity, the thought process, and the behaviors of a 250 pound person, well, guess what's going to happen? Even if they got down to 150 pounds, not only is it not going to be sustainable, but even if they are 150 pounds, it's never going to be enough, because they look in the mirror and they see a 250 pound person, right? And so it's never enough for them. Conversely, if you get somebody who maybe they're 250 pounds, but they adopt the behaviors and the thought process and the identity of a 150 pound person, well, guess what? It's only a matter of time if they maintain that identity of a 150 pound person, that it's only a matter of time until all of those actions and the behaviors that they have been taking are going to become that of a 150 pound person. So their external world is going to become a reflection of their internal identity with a delay, right? So I just wanted to go ahead and throw that in there for you guys as RWA coaches, because that's like a nice example that just came off the top of my head, right? And so when we focus on becoming that person, then our dream life happens automatically, right? But if we stay who we are now, and this is the kicker, Tina, you got to hear me out on this. This is very, very important. This is the reason why people stay stuck for so long. If we stay who we are now, we will continue to have the same results in our life and never actually attain what it is that we want in life. Are you with me? Yes, this is how impactful everything that is that we are talking about. And then for you as RWA students, we've gone ahead and included some awesome quotes that we've loved. You can just go ahead and pick whatever quotes you like the best. It's like, hey, if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always gotten. If you want something that you've never had, you have to become someone you've never been, think about things the way that you've never have, and do things that you've never done, right? What got you to where you are now will not get you to where you want to go. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. The scariest place to be is the same place as last year. You may not be ready now, but through the process, you will become ready. And so if you don't sacrifice for your dreams, then your dreams will become the sacrifice. Now, again, you don't have to say like all of the quotes. That was literally just me giving you an example of, how it would be said if you were going to do all the quotes. I wouldn't recommend doing all the quotes unless you really wanted to kind of go crazy with it. But, pick a couple, maybe add a couple of your own, whatever works best for you. Those are some really, really solid ones from there, right? And so that is kind of the tail end of the new information section. It is a little bit more dense, especially here because these are new information pieces that are completely new for the student, right? Usually when we talk about like sleep and we talk about high energy foods and we talk about hunger and fullness scale, inside of those topics, it's a little bit more dialogue because people can conceptually understand. But especially when we're talking about the becoming process and we talk about these topics, it's a lot harder for people to be able to understand these concepts. So it's a lot more of us talking. And so we kind of have to be cognizant of that. We have to kind of do a little bit more checking. We have to make sure that we are really fine-tuning as remote wellness practitioners, our ability to read the nonverbal cues of the student so we can make sure that we are seeing, hey, are they interacting? Are they with me? Are they losing it? Are their eyes glazing over? Are they losing interest? All of that is very important, especially inside of these more abstract coaching calls and topics, right? And so here at the tail end of the new information section, we go ahead and say, cool, so talk to me. Where's your headspace at right now? How is this different than any other approach that you've seen before, right? Do you see now the mission that we're on here at, NutriFit Wellness Academy? Do you see why this is such a big deal for us, right? We're trying to really get this message out to the world. It's so important for us. All of that is what you're able to do here. And then also never let go of an opportunity to throw some rocks at the way that things are done out there, the way that they should not be done, right? It's like, it's terrible that all these people out there, these programs that are out there just giving meal plans and workouts, and they think that's going to actually help their clients. Unfortunately, as you know, 90%, you may not know this, Tina, but 90% of diets fail. It's terrible. It's like a massacre going on out there. And so that's why the message of what we're doing here at NutriFit Wellness Academy is so insane. This is why it's so beneficial and right? And so you can really kind of take it from there and get passionate about it. And that really becomes your message, that becomes your mission as you go forward through that. And of course, as we've already talked about many times before, your understanding of these topics are a lot deeper than this, right? There's so much that we left out, especially when we talk about these topics, so many nuggets that are located in the nutrition WHO training, right? Especially for those students who struggle with beliefs about food, beliefs about body, right? There's just so much like out of the toolbox that you had earlier in your certification that you can pull from depending on the student that you're talking about. But again, remember, none of this matters if you don't actually find your voice, right? The actual content doesn't matter, regardless of whether you decide to stick to the topics that we have in these practice modules or you decide to change them. The thing that's not going to change is your conviction, your belief, your methodology, your ideology, the way that you think about it. Finding your voice is the ticket. We sometimes call this your spice, right? Everybody's kind of working with the same base ingredients here, right? But how do you get a different meal than a different RWA student? Is because you got to add your spice. And finding your own spice, finding your own voice, that is the part that takes the longest. That is what takes the thing that, hey, what's my passion? What's my ideology? What's my methodology? How is it that I am creating this movement that is different than everything that is out there? Yes, we're providing you the base foundations of this, right? Yes, even we're providing you some of the foundational spices of this as well, right? But that is going to be ultimately up to you to be able to bring that passion within you, right? If you don't bring that passion, if you don't convey and communicate that passion, you might even have the passion within you, but you're not able to communicate that. And learning to be able to communicate that passion is a skill in and of itself, right? And so it doesn't matter. There is no secret to like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and, take the content that we had from the Nutrition WHO training, and I'm going to go ahead and put that together in my scripts. None of that matters if you're not able to actually find your voice, because ultimately it's your voice. The voice is your spice. That is what actually makes it different and unique to you specifically. It's not necessarily the words, but it's your conviction and your belief and your passion behind the words that makes all the difference. difference, okay? And so ultimately, remember, we do not want to overwhelm the student. We want to make it practical and actionable for them. So that is kind of the gist of what's inside of new information, okay? And so that is coaching call 6, new information. From there, we go ahead and hop into the experience exercise. Now, the experience exercise here is going to be something that is going to be new for you as remote wellness practitioners, as RWA student as well, because of the fact that this mental rehearsal kind of experience is something that is more powerful to be done in a one-on-one model. That's the reason why we didn't include it earlier in the curriculum. And so I am going to go ahead and take a few minutes here and explain to you exactly what mental rehearsal is, so that way you can get an idea of it before we actually go through the script. Okay, so the scripting of this is going to be on the right side. I'm going to return back to this in just a second, because I first need to explain to you what exactly mental rehearsal is, so that way you can understand the power of it and you understand the gist behind why exactly we are delivering it and why it is the experience exercise. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about that right now. So what is mental rehearsal? Mental rehearsal is a technique, it's a tool that you can use yourself as well as you can walk your students through in order to accelerate the becoming process. And because, like I said, this is a new topic for RWA students, I'm going to go ahead and explain it in depth over here. So mental rehearsal is a technique that is used by champion athletes and those who are world-class high performers. Okay, so athletes, for example, before they're in a game, they imagine from their perspective in their mind as though they are already in the game. Now, they're not in the game, they're just imagining it with their mind, right? And so what they do is they do a mental trial run, right? They mentally rehearse each and every piece of their performance as if they are actually in it, by breaking it down to its pieces and putting themselves in that situation, right? They're literally practicing in their mind. Now, why are we putting that here in coaching call number 6? Why are we attaching that to the Becoming Journal? Well, what you got to do is you need to understand why mental rehearsal works, right? Now, this is going to be mainly for you as a remote wellness practitioner. It's good for you to know why it works and the behind the scenes of it. This may or may not be something that you ever actually explain to your students, but I want you to be educated on that, okay? So mental rehearsal works because if you remember, the mind gets information from 3 places, right? We said that the mind, a lot of people think, oh, I smell, taste, hear, feel from my sensory organs. My sensory organs are the things that are actually giving input, that are giving data and information to the mind, and then the mind actually processes. The brain is the one that actually processes that, right? And the sensory organs are only one place that information is given to the mind and the brain. The other 2 places are memory and imagination, okay? And so it doesn't matter if you actually see something, if you are in your mind's eye playing back a memory, it's the same thing as if you're actually seeing something with your eyes right now. Same thing. If you are imagining seeing something, it's the same as if you're actually seeing something. That's how powerful the brain actually is. And so the brain gets these inputs from these 3 places: sensory organs, memory, and imagination. And so what that means is that for the mind actually does not know the difference between what is actually real and what is actually imagined. Why? Because of the fact that it is getting information in the same way through the sensory organs, through memory, and through imagination. Okay, and so it doesn't matter if you're replaying a memory. It doesn't matter if you're actually seeing it, smelling it, tasting it, hearing it live, like right now, or you're actually imagining it. For the brain, all of that is the same, right? And so just by using your mind to practice being the person that you want to be, your brain is rewiring itself at a physical level, okay? Our brains physically change when we actually practice mental rehearsal. Think about how crazy that is, and I'm about to expand on that even more here in just a second. So when we think about these high performers who are doing mental rehearsal and they're actually walking themselves through those things, what they're doing is when they're using mental rehearsal, they're using imagination, right? They might even be using a little bit of memory from what it is they remember from previous games. But at the same time, it's as if they're actually experiencing it, because for the mind, there is no difference between what is real and what is imagined. Now, in a previous training, we also did talk about an example of this, a study that was done by the University of Chicago with the 3 groups of people and the basketball free throws. I'm not going to go through that again, but we did talk about that before, right? And so that is the power of the mind and imagination. Now, does that mean that we should just stop doing any sort of action and just start doing things in our mind? Of course not, right? Research has shown that by doing both physical practice and mental practice, it's more effective than just doing either one of those alone. And so there are so many high performers who talk about this from every single walk of life, whether that be physical physical athlete performers, whether that be chess players. There are so many that talk about this. Two that I found that are specific to golf over here. You can see here, Jack Nicholson said that I never hit a shot, not even in practice, without having a very sharp, in-focus picture of it in my mind. Okay, you can see here, this was Phil Mickelson. He said mental rehearsal is just as important as physical rehearsal. And there are, like I said, so many high performers. If you literally just Google it, you'll see that there are so many athletes, so many, high performers in every domain of life, in business, in whatever it is, in coaching, whatever it is. Here's one of the godfathers of personal development, Brian Tracy, and he's talking about mental rehearsal. He says that the best time to practice mental rehearsal is at night in bed, just before you fall asleep. The last thing you do before you doze off is to imagine yourself performing at your best the following day. You will be amazed at how often the upcoming event or experience happens exactly as you imagined it, right? And so obviously he's talking about a very specific use case there, but you can see here, mental rehearsal is not something that we just made up. It's very, very, very proven from science, from how the brain works. It's a fact, okay? And so what we're doing here, and remember, this is just the explanation. Just ignore everything on the right side here, because that's the script that we're going to come back to here in just a second. But what I'm doing is I'm opening your own mind to understand the behind the scenes and how powerful mental rehearsal actually is, okay? Now, how do we actually do mental rehearsal? So high performers and athletes do mental rehearsal by basically playing vividly high detailed images through their mind. And so what they're doing is it's kind of like they're playing out a movie by using all of their senses, okay? So high performers, for example, engage what they will see when they are actually in the situation, what they will hear when they are actually in the situation, what their breathing is going to be like, what the taste is going to be like, what they're going to feel, every small nuance. The more they're able to kind of put up that dial of their senses and their feelings and really put themselves in that situation, the better. And so they engage all of their senses and put themselves in the actual situation. And so just like when you imagine a monster that's in the closet after seeing a scary movie, again, your mind does not know the difference between what is real or what is imagined. And so when you're turning up the dial on all of the senses and you're putting yourself in the actual situation through the use of your memory and through the use of your imagination, then your brain is as if it is actually doing it, okay? Now, a quick note here in terms of mental rehearsal versus visualization. Mental rehearsal is different than visualization because visualization implies that you're actually observing yourself from like a third-party perspective. You're seeing yourself from somebody else's eyes, versus mental rehearsal is you putting yourself in your own situation through your own eyes and going through the same physiological, emotional responses that you would have as if you were doing the physical act itself, right? And so this is especially helpful when you're imagining your mind and putting yourself in some of the most difficult moments. And what you're doing is that through the most difficult moments, you're like, hey, you know what? Maybe it's something that's emotionally difficult, something that's physically difficult. What you do is you replay that in your mind, and through mental practice, you kind of work out coping strategies for being able to stay control of your mind during those difficult situations. And then guess what happens? When you actually face that difficult situation, you're able to go ahead because you've already practiced it. It turns out the same way that you practice it in your mind, okay? And so this is so powerful and so amazing because it can be applied to so many areas of your life, especially when we put this together with the Becoming Journal and the Becoming process. We can then expedite the process of becoming your version 2.0 self, and your version 2.0 identity is because we're actually mentally rehearsing as if we are already that person. Now, of course, we do also need to make sure that we are making the decisions in alignment with the type of person that we're becoming, because it's the actual physical practices, the physical actions, the physical decisions in the real world situations that are ultimately going to be the things that move the needle forward. But when we're actually able to do mental rehearsal as the person, we can practice making those decisions. So therefore, making those decisions actually becomes so much easier when they actually show up, okay? Now, as we kind of close out this explanation here on the left side, and then we get into the script that we're presenting for you as a remote wellness practitioner, it's also important to understand why this is important for you as an RWP, okay? Because the reason why this is so successful and effective for you as a remote wellness practitioner is because your number one job as an RWP is to facilitate transformation with the becoming process in order to help the student transform into their version 2.0 self and identity, right? Why? Because if they become their version 2.0 identity, at this point you probably have memorized it, is that then their transformation will actually take care of itself, is because they've become the person, right? And the number one challenge with that is going to be getting students to get motivated to follow through. And so one of the biggest reasons that students come to you is to be able to help them actually do, right? They know a lot of stuff, but they struggle with actually doing, right? And actually doing things is not going to come from like white knuckle, willpower, here's a laundry list of action items, let's go out there and do them. It's going to come from them transforming into their version 2.0 identity. And so remember, true lifelong transformation only sticks when it happens at the deepest level of change, right? It only happens when it happens at the being level and at the identity level. And so we've talked about this in previous trainings, is that your job, your number one responsibility as a remote wellness practitioner in order to help bridge that gap between knowing and doing is to be able to help them become that version 2.0 identity. It's not about helping them do more or have more actions. And some people are like, oh, I'm going to hold them accountable. Yes, accountability is going to work, but that's still at this level of change. What happens when you are no longer there in order to hold them accountable? The actual internal accountability, where is that going to come from? That's going to come from this deeper level of change at the identity level, where they themselves are holding themselves accountable because all of a sudden their identity is the one that is holding them in place. And so when you make change at the identity level, the student doesn't have to force themselves or use willpower in order to do things or not to do things. Why? Because when you become your version 2.0 self, using mental rehearsal, using actually making decisions actively throughout the day, right? Every single time you're coming up with that decision, you're acting and choosing to become your version 2.0 self. The best choice when you are actually being your version 2.0 self becomes automatic, and that is what creates lasting change. And so mental rehearsal is one of the most effective techniques to help create lasting transformation and habit change for your student, because you're helping them tap into their own internal motivation to succeed, okay? And so because with mental rehearsal, in their mind, they are practicing overcoming that resistance. And so when they actually experience the actual resistance of the pull of their old identity, of their old limbic self, of their subconscious mind, right, of their version 1.0 self, when they actually experience that, well, guess what? They've already practiced overcoming that in their mind. And so they know exactly how to handle it, and they know exactly how to overcome it because they've already done the mental rehearsal. And so then with enough of those decisions as their version 2.0 identity, they have then stacked enough rocks on the other side of the scale in order to become their new version of themselves, right? And of course, as you already know, guess what? What happens when they become their version 2.0 self? Once they become their version 2.0 identity, then their 2.0 reality will take care of itself automatically, okay? Because once you become the type of person, the reality changes itself. Remember this, okay? This is a quote that we put together, and I want you to remember this. Your external reality is just a reflection of your internal identity with a delay. Remember that. Remember that 250-pound example, 250-pound example? We talked about that, right? That's specific to weight loss. I'm just giving an example. Don't think it's all about weight loss. It's not, but it's just an easy quantifiable example. Here is that, remember, your external reality is just a reflection of your internal identity with a delay. And so let's say, for example, the person was able to become a 150-pound identity, right? Even if the scale still shows 250 pounds, it shows 240 pounds, it shows 230 pounds, well, guess what? With a delay, it's only a matter of time when you act in alignment with the person that you're becoming, the habits, the character traits, the values, the decisions. It's only a matter of time until the external reality catches up to what your internal identity actually is. And so mental rehearsal is just one of those tools in the tool belt for you as an RWP to be able to facilitate that for your student, and quite honestly for yourself as well. Because here is the kicker to all of this as we kind of close out this explanation of mental rehearsal and get back into the script. Here's the kicker. This is the recommendation. Do this yourself as well. Because even though you are teaching this, even though you are the RWP, even though you are walking other students through this, well, guess what? You're still living life, and you're having to go through your own transformations as well. Whether that be your transformation right now because you're scared and nervous that you have imposter syndrome, you're scared to become a remote wellness practitioner, you don't really see yourself as a coach, you don't know if you're going to be able to be financially wealthy, whatever it is, you don't have the reality and the dream life that you want right now. So guess what? You're going to have to do the becoming process yourself. You're going to have to work on becoming the person so that way you can actually have the life that you want, right? And so we highly recommend that you do mental rehearsal for yourself in order to facilitate you becoming your version 2.0 identity, right? You want to make sure that you are already doing this with your own becoming journal as an RWA student, so that way you can actually speak from experience. When you actually do this, when you actually use your becoming journal on a daily basis and you're going through transformation yourself, you're working on becoming your own identity, then guess what? You can actually talk to your student as an enthusiast. You're coming up with the passion and the conviction because you take your own medicine, right? Instead of trying to be like the guru on the mountain who's the expert, right? That guru on the mountain, they don't do the actions anymore, right? They did them in the past, they don't do them anymore. So they lack the passion, they lack the conviction. They're not actually in the trenches doing the work. And so when you approach your own student with enthusiasm and you're the enthusiastic one, not the expert, right? You're not trying to seem like you're the expert here. What you're trying to seem like is, hey, I'm just 10 steps ahead of you and I'm so dang passionate, enthusiastic about this. And that's what I'm sharing with you, right? Don't see me as the guru on the mountain who kind of achieved things and retired and then all of a sudden I'm the one that you got to look up to. You and I, we're on the same journey together. I just happen to be a couple steps ahead of you and I'm just sharing with you where it is that I went wrong so that way you can actually expedite your process because I'm doing this with you. And this is the same approach that we actually help you guys here at RWA, right? It's like, hey, we're not some gurus on the mountain. I've said this over and over and over again, is that we're going to get to the point where guess what? We're an RWA family. We're all going to be learning from each other. You're going to try some things that we never thought about. And it's like, wow, that's a completely new thing that we're learning from, right? And so yes, you're getting the foundations and everything from us, but we're not some gurus on the mountain. We're just a couple steps ahead of you. And we wish somebody would have given us this understanding 10 years ago so we would have saved ourselves beating our head against the wall. And so that is ultimately what it is that we are providing you, is because we're just enthusiastic, right? And we want to be able to save you the headache of all the things that we've already created and we've already put together, so that way we can expedite your process. And then guess what? We are hand in hand, shoulder by shoulder. We are going on this journey together. So Remote Wellness Academy and, whatever your remote wellness practice is going to be, right? RWP. And we're into this side by side, right? We're learning from each other. We're going this step by step. And then you are doing the same thing with your students as well. A lot of people's imposter syndrome comes from the fact that they're trying to position themselves as something that they are not. They're trying to fake it till you make it. But I'm telling you right now, trying to be the expert and the guru on the mountain as a self-proclaimed expert, get rid of that. You are enthusiastic. You are an enthusiast, okay, who's just a couple steps ahead. And when you think about it that way, it's not as scary anymore. The only time that you actually become an expert is when other people call you an expert. It's not coming from you trying to position or kind of like, put your chest out and be like, yo, look at me. I'm an expert. I'm the guru. I know everything. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a recipe for imposter syndrome. Just get busy with the action. And then when you actually are just talking about the things that you are passionate about, the entire game becomes so much more fun, okay? And so ultimately, that's what I talk about here when we talk about whatever dream that you have right now, which as a student in the Remote Wellness Academy, I'm sure you have a lot of dreams. You're looking for a lot out of this program, right? You want to be able to finish your certification. You want to be able to go and get something out of this program. Well, I'm telling you right now, the program is not what is going to get you there, right? The program is facilitating that transformation, right? This entire transformation product, our transformation product that you are going through, it's facilitating that transformation for you. But it is not going to be the thing that gets you to where it is that you want to go. The thing that's going to get you to where it is that you want to go is you must become the person. It doesn't matter if you get coaching from the greatest coach on the planet, right? All of the greatest coaches of all time rise from the dead and decide to coach you in order to get you where you want to go. But if you never become the person, I'm telling you right now, you're not going to be able to get the things that you want out of this program. You're not going to be able to get the things that you want out of life, because ultimately it comes from becoming the dang person. Okay. And so if you are not actually doing the process, if you're not actually doing the dang work of becoming that person, I'm telling you right now, you are going to have a very, very difficult time actually being able to talk to others about this as well. The reason why I'm able to be so passionate about what it is that I'm talking about is because every single day, every single coach at RWA is putting in the dang work. We are in the trenches doing this. And then what we do is we talk about the things that we are learning, the things that we are actually doing on a daily basis. Okay. And so what you're doing is that we would recommend is that every single day as you are doing your becoming journal, we would highly recommend that you use mental rehearsal the way that you're about to learn it right now. So that way you can also expedite the process of becoming that identity of yourself that is going to effortlessly create the dream life that you want in your life. Okay. And so that is kind of like the side explanation that I wanted to go ahead and explain and really emphasize some of the big issues that I see with those who are looking to become remote wellness practitioners and maybe those students who expect to be spoon spoon-fed, and maybe some students who wear the failure uniform. It really is an issue, but it really is an issue because of the fact that they're not willing to put in the dang work to become the person that will effortlessly create their dream life. Okay, so that is a whole explanation of mental rehearsal. That's what it is that we're talking about here on the left side. And now what I'm going to do, it's not going to be as extensive. I know this entire section seemed like it was a lot longer because there was an explanation here. But now as we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and talk about the script and the way that you're actually going to do it in the practice calls. And then all of this is going to make a lot more sense for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch into frame, and we're going to go ahead and talk to Tina again. So let's go ahead, we've neglected Tina for a little while here. We've been talking to RWA students. We got to talk to Tina again. So let's go ahead and talk to Tina. So hey, Tina, now that we understand the Becoming Journal and how powerful it is, the next part of our coaching call today, I want to walk you through an exercise that you do with your Becoming Journal that accelerates your progress to becoming your new identity, which accelerates the process of you getting your dream life, right? This is what we call mental rehearsal, okay? Now, what you're going to go ahead and do is in the scripting, you'll see there is a little mini explanation of mental rehearsal. Obviously, this is nowhere near as in-depth as you just learned here on the left side. And that really is kind of the theme, right? You as a remote wellness practitioner, because you're getting the certification, you're learning things at like 3 or 4 or 5 steps deeper, layers deeper than what your student is actually getting, right? And so therefore, when you talk to your student and you're like, hey, I'm just an enthusiast. I just happen to be a couple steps ahead of you. I just happen to be a couple layers deeper. That's what it is that you're mentioning. That's what you're talking about, is because you know behind the scenes that even though this is your explanation of what mental rehearsal is for your student, well, you just went through a whole deeper understanding of this. And then guess what? This right here, even this explanation doesn't scratch the surface of what it is that you know about how the mind works and the 5, lies of society and the big lie of identity and identity statements and transformation statements and all of that kind of stuff. And so you're just kind of explaining it here because you're just an enthusiast and you're not trying to be the guru on the mountain, okay? And so explaining mental rehearsal there. And then what you do is you go into priming the brain on outcome and identity, okay? So you say, okay, so to start this exercise off, to prime our brains before we actually begin, let's just really quickly for 30 seconds remind ourselves of what was on your what page and what was on your who page, okay? So your what page and your who page. Now, at this point, if they don't have their Becoming Journal kind of put together, then it's kind of like what's on the what worksheet and the who worksheet. And so you might be able to use this mental rehearsal script based off of, if they've already done it, you want to use it again, all that kind of stuff, right? Now, a couple notes on this. You do not want to take long reading through this. You just want to kind of remind yourself and the student of what is on their page there for the what and the who. And then also for yourself as the RWP, you want to jot down some quick notes about what is in their what page and their who page, because you're going to actually use that in the mental rehearsal in just a second. And then for example purposes inside of this example, I'm going to go ahead and use the example of Tina. And let's say Tina's dream life was to be able to move her body more. So you're going to see that mentioned throughout the example script. But again, remember, you're going to be able to change that depending on the student that you are talking to. Okay, so then we go ahead and do 3 over here. Now, obviously, these parts over here are really just to kind of organize the script. It doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't have to follow this structure. You don't actually say this out loud. It's just to organize this so it's not a big, wall of text, but kind of just wanted to make that note as well. So, all right, so now that we've gone ahead and done that, we're going to go ahead and begin the exercise. So for this exercise, Tina, I ask that you please sit up straight with a tall spine, and I want you to just get comfortable in your chair, okay? And so when you're ready, with your eyes open, I want you to take 3 deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth, okay? 1, 2, 3, you go through the whole thing. Okay, and then on the 3rd breath, I want you to now go ahead and close your eyes and return your breathing to normal, okay? And then with your eyes closed, I want you to picture in your mind your new identity, the new version 2.0 identity of Tina, the one that loves to be able to move her body, the one that has, the ability to be consistent, the one has the ability to be persistent, reliant, whatever. You're putting in the characteristics of what they said inside of their version 2.0 worksheet there, okay? The one who effortlessly is able to move her body every single day. You're putting the clear what there, right? And so picture in your mind that identity of Tina. Picture in your mind's eye the future version of you that is 100% committed to moving her body because the body loves to move and was made to move. Do you see her? Do you see that Tina, right? What I want you to do is I want you to be able to step into that future Tina. With your eyes closed, slip into that future Tina's body and become her right now in your body, right? This is the future version of you that is 100% committed to making choices in small, manageable steps that will lead you to feel better, healthier, and have more energy. Again, you'll see the brackets on here. It really allows you to tweak whatever is there, right? So you don't have to read this as the script. You can kind of tweak it accordingly to what is the needs of the student, but this is just the example, right? So she's already having the result that you want right now, right? She's moving her body consistently and is enjoying it. I want you to take a moment and just be the future you. Look through her eyes, hear through her ears, feel with her feelings. Continue to breathe mindfully as you sit in your chair right now, and as you take a breath, breathe as if you are already the future Tina. Breathe as if you are already the new Tina identity. Breathe with her lungs, feel her heartbeat as if it is her. And so as this future version of Tina, take a look around you. Where are you? What do you see? Who are you with? Notice the sounds. Are the people talking to you? Notice what they're saying, right? Notice the thoughts that you're thinking. What is this future Tina that already has your dream life? What is she saying to herself, right? And then, like a dial on a stereo, we're going to go ahead and turn up the volume on your senses, right? Scan your senses, what you see, hear, feel, smell, taste. Allow yourself to really feel this new identity of Tina and how she loves to be able to move her body. Really put yourself as that future version of yourself, right? And now you're going to see we're going to get into a little bit of goal specific here. It's like as you inhale and exhale, notice how everything is going well for you as the future Tina. Notice how it feels to be able to take good care of your body, right? Allow yourself to feel the clarity and wonder and awe because you have a body. And it's a miracle to have a body, isn't it? Feel how incredibly blessed that you are, that you have this beautiful body that serves you so well because you get to feel, right? With each inhale and exhale, you might become aware of how glad you are that you have this body, that you can do what it is that you are able to do. This body has the ability to move, and this body loves to move. That's the natural instinct of the body. You start to feel the future Tina loves to move, craves to move. And as she does, she inspires others to do the same because she's becoming her best true self. And so as you breathe in your chair right now, feel how amazing it feels to move your body. And from this place, as you are being the future Tina, you realize that you are the only you that will ever be born. And so from this place, you ask yourself, why not be the best version of me that I can be? Because only I can offer the world the gifts that are uniquely mine. Ask yourself that question right now in your mind. Why not be the best version of me that I can be? Because only I can offer the world the gifts that are uniquely mine, right? You tell yourself, yes, I feel so freaking good right now. I am ready for anything. I want you to tell yourself that silently inside of your mind right now. Now, I want to go ahead and break frame here. You're going to see that a lot of these things that we're kind of walking through here, you don't necessarily have to use this exact script. There's nothing special about these specific wordings, right? This is just something that we went ahead and put together that we've used with our students in the past. And there's many different variations of this as well. Again, you're more than welcome to try this. You're more than welcome to tweak it, figure out what suits you, what doesn't suit you, but understand the principle behind it, right? We've talked about this. Education is not the memorizing of facts, but the training of the mind to think. Understand the principle behind it. Take the principle behind it and don't get married to the specific wording or the specific questions. Really understand exactly what the idea is taking behind it. And then from there on that section of the mental rehearsal, we then move on into advice from future identity. Again, don't get married to that specific part. It's just to go ahead and provide some structure to the script here. And so then we go into, now take a few deep breaths and please answer the following question out loud. If this future Tina advised the Tina right now, what would this future Tina tell you here right now about movement? And then what you want to do is you're going to pause and allow for the student to be able to respond, right? What would that future Tina, what would she advise to you right now about movement, right? And then you go ahead and bring back to the present moment. Beautiful. Now go ahead and bring that advice back to you here right now. Bring yourself back to the present moment. Feel your weight sitting in your chair. Feel your feet on the ground. Come back to the present moment with me here right now and gently open your eyes. And at your own time, when you're ready, talk to me. How was that for you? And you let the student respond, share their experience out loud, dialogue about the experience, kind of take it from there, right? Now, I'm going to go ahead and mention, like, this might seem like it was a little bit long, but again, remember, you condense and expand according to the time that you have inside of the coaching call. And remember, in some cases, you might even end up skipping some of the experience exercises because of the fact that the new information took so much longer, right? So these are just practice calls. You're doing your best. Make sure that you are kind of watching and being respectful of your fellow partners' kind of timestamp and kind of their time constraints on there. But again, remember, just go ahead and practice this. You can do it by yourself as well. You can do it with a family member, a friend, do it with, your partner, partner. Just really go ahead and practice this so that way you have it in your tool belt, and then you can condense and expand and take it from there once you understand the principle behind it. Okay, so that is mental rehearsal. We've gone ahead and talked the explanation about it. We've also talked about the script behind it as well. From there, we go ahead and move on into the action steps. So, all right, so now that we can go ahead and see how all this comes together, let's go ahead and talk about your action steps so that we can actually make this a reality. And then you go ahead and walk them through actually putting their becoming journal together. So we go ahead and talk to them about compiling their becoming journal, right? We go ahead and talk to them about, hey, this is not about creating it. You've already done all of the hard work. This is actually the easy part. All we're doing is we're going ahead and compiling it. I'm not going to read through this word for word, but you can go ahead and make sure that you do that for the sake of the script. And then action step number 2 is all about printing and practicing mental rehearsal daily using the becoming journal. Okay, now, again, I'm not going to go through this step by step, but the gist of what it is that you're explaining here is a lot of what it is that you learned earlier inside of this certification program and earlier inside of your certification, right? So you're walking the student through like, hey, there are 2 ideal times to be able to do this. Repetition is key. Without repetition, this entire process is useless. Why do we do it during these times? X, Y, Z. Does this make sense so far? I want to go ahead and let you know that the opportunities are endless and there are unlimited possibilities on how you can actually use the becoming journal. We've had students actually record the mental rehearsal in their becoming journal as a voice memo on their phone. We've had some of them print it out and be able to put certain identity statements on their bathroom mirror. At some point, one student even printed it out and laminated it and put it their version 2.0 identity page in the shower so they could see it every single day, right? You can really get creative with this. And when you do this, what's going to end up happening, Tina, is that you're going to start craving becoming your version 2.0 identity because you're repeating it over and over and over and over again. Okay. And so what this means is that what seems impossible for you right now as your version 1.0 identity is going to become something that you absolutely love and enjoy as your version 2.0 identity, all because of the becoming journal and using mental rehearsal. Okay. And so I've even had students tell me that they went from hating exercise to craving exercise all because of this. Okay. But remember, without doing this daily, without doing the repetition, we're going to stay stuck as our current identity. And then all of a sudden we're going to have the same reality that we have right now. So what day do you plan on printing it out? All of that accountability stuff. Now, remember, I didn't go through this word for word. So make sure you do go ahead and read through the script out loud so that way you are familiar with it as well. And I do want to just go ahead and make a quick note on here about recording and creating a voice memo for your student, right? So in some cases, I have even in our own remote wellness practice taken the step to record a mental rehearsal like the example one that we just went ahead and talked through above, specific to the student using my phone and sent it to the student, right? And so this is a principle in business. We're going to talk more about this in phase 2 that I want you to really understand, right? So a principle in business and product development is that eat the complexity for your customer, or in this case, your student, right? And so to make your product better and better to the point where it is remarkable and your customer can't help but remark about it. That's what remarkable means. It has the ability to be remarked upon, right? Is that to help make your product remarkable so that way your customer can't help but remark about it to all of their friends and family. It means being able to make the experience better and better and better. And so yes, we at Remote Wellness Academy, we're giving you the foundations, right? And we're always going to strive to provide you with the best of the best of the best. But even with that though, the long term inside of your career as an RWP is going to be up to you to constantly work on improving your product. Yes, don't worry, we're going to give you the product. Don't worry, it's going to be done for you. Don't worry, everything's going to be taken care of for you. Don't worry about that. But long term, you need to be able to figure out that spice. You got to be able to understand the principles. You got to be able to think for yourself so that way you can tap into your own resourcefulness and your own creativity. Remember, done for you, do it yourself approach. That's what we're calling this entire thing, right? And so that way you can constantly work on improving your product. You can tap into your creativity. You can tap into all of that to be able to make your customer experience better and better and better. And so you will learn this more in phase 2 of the program. But here's the thing. When you have an amazing product, marketing and sales becomes honestly effortless. And so that's why I wanted to go ahead and touch base on this, is because a lot of these things we're talking about, yes, you're doing the practice coaching calls. Don't try to get ahead of yourself. Don't try to make voice memos and all this kind of stuff and stress yourself out. For right now, focus on the practice calls, focus on finding your voice, focus on that. But I did want to just go ahead and mention this so that way you do have it in the back of your head that, okay, all of this is my transformation product. And this is one piece of my transformation product. And I'm going to be working on tweaking this to make it better and better and better and better. And that's how I'm going to be able to stand out, because then marketing and sales becomes effortless because my product is remarkable. And then my student goes ahead and remarks about it to all of their friends and family. And then guess what? you barely even got to market and sell because of the fact that your product is so amazing and you're getting so many referrals coming in left and right. All right. And so that is going to be step and action step number 2, which is practice and printing. Well, printing and practicing mental rehearsal daily by using the Becoming Journal. Okay. So that's action step number 2. And then from there, we go into action step number 3, which is all about continuing to build on what was already covered. And so remember, this is going to be where you can actually go ahead and help them continue to build on some of the things that they said they wanted to do. Now, this might not even be specific to the program, right? Let's say, for example, they told you in the beginning that they want to be able to go to yoga class once a week or whatever. This is where you can actually check up on that, right? So yes, we have action steps that are specific to the curriculum, specific to the call, but then we also have action steps that are like, hey, let's just work on like making sure that as we learn this new knowledge and cement it, we're able to make sure that we're keeping the boat afloat in our other goals as well. It's not like we went ahead and just threw everything else out the window. We got to make sure that we are continuing to build on what was covered as well. And obviously there's some optional question sequences there. And then obviously from there, as you close out the action steps, you're going to have the student repeat them back to you. And then you're also going to go ahead and make sure that they have them written down. And then that way they can actually refer to those as well. And then you're going to make sure that you are able to also anchor the action steps. Now, this is an optional thing you can kind of throw in there. It's like, hey, how will you following through on this make a difference this week if you constantly do that? How will you feel next week when you actually do that? This is an awesome kind of question sequence. If you have time, you kind of throw it in there, throw it in at the end there, and that helps as well. From there, we actually go ahead and get into part number 6, which is ahas, insights, takeaways, and appreciations. In terms of the scripting, nothing changes here, but obviously you are going to be tweaking it and practicing things differently. There are some optional sequences there for you. And then of course, we're going to go ahead and go into the closing here. Just a reminder, make sure that you do actually get a specific time to meet with your student the next time. And then of course, if they say that things are getting busy for them, there is that optional coaching sequence and question sequence there for you as well. With that being said, let's go ahead and hop into the 2 quick last notes before we talk about your practice call. Of course, ditching the script. We've talked about this many times in the past. I'm going to go ahead and really just every single time, I'm going to make sure that I hit the nail in the coffin. I don't know how many nails are in this coffin, by the way, but like, dang, there must be a lot of nails in this coffin, right? And so remember, the scripts are only training wheels for you to be able to find your voice. This is the done for you, do it yourself approach. So that way you can have and tap into your own resourcefulness, because remember, do not expect to be spoon fed. If you're expecting to be spoon fed, you're in the wrong place. This is all really there to help you find your voice. Do not expect to follow blindly and be spoon fed. Okay. Just like Albert Einstein said, education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. Okay. And so eventually we're going to be able to get to the point where you get everything that what it is that we have to offer. And then guess what? We're all in a mastermind together, and we're all growing together, and we're all learning from each other because we're all tweaking and we're all putting our own spice to things. And that is ultimately the process that we're getting you to. But to be able to get there, you got to first make sure that you replicate before you iterate. Okay. So yes, don't be spoon fed, but also don't try to go out there and, be the next, Leonardo da Vinci and create something from scratch and add all the stress to you and then get burnt out and then procrastinate everything, right? So that's why we do the done for you, do it yourself approach. So that way you have all of that in your tool belt. Of course, the pillars of your transformation product, we're really focusing on the coaching calls, which is the training piece. Don't worry, we're going to be able to talk to the other pieces as well and be able to create that synergy, the 4 cardinal rules and your minimum viable product. All of that, you do not want to forget that as well. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about coaching call practice number 6. This is going to be the final practice call that you do with your partner. And so you will be going ahead and bidding farewell to your partner for now. So let's go ahead and talk about that, why practice calls are important. Of course, you understand the importance of them. They are absolutely critical, very, very important. If you do need a reminder for that, make sure you do look at the guide for this training. In terms of the instructions for this, number 1, make sure that you go ahead and follow the step-by-step instructions in the how to practice calls training. Okay. And then after that, you want to go ahead and talk about the important notes on here. Make sure you go ahead and make it real or semi-real. You're going to continue with the same student in the previous coaching call, but here's the difference. Pay attention. Because this is the last call with your partner, you will be doing the thank you video the way that you did in the previous last call with your partner. And then you're going to go ahead and take that testimonial and you're going to put that into your student wins group. Remember, this is a cycle. It's a virtuous cycle that's going to feed and really be able to go ahead and make this very, very powerful for you. And so remember, when giving your thank you testimonial, reciprocity here. Don't be lame. Don't be dry. Really give them a proper testimonial as if it was awesome to be able to work with them, as if, now it's not going to go public, but as if someone else heard it, they would be like, dude, dang, heck yes, I definitely want to work with this person, right? Being able to give that testimonial is going to be able to feed your partner and is going to really kickstart that cycle for them, okay? And in the same way, because reciprocity, because you're giving it, guess what? Your partner is going to be able to give that to you as well, okay? And so that is going to be the thank you video on there. A couple instructions, make sure you do the pre-work, make sure you do read it out loud, the script multiple times. Don't be a failure uniform student who tries to practice for the first time on the call. Make sure you are respectful of your fellow student. Make sure you do go ahead and exchange thank you videos. We do have the templated script kind of questions around there. Remember, these are just guidelines. Don't expect to be spoon-fed. You are able to kind of tweak them, but you can go ahead and use these as a guideline in there as well. And then, of course, from there, you want to switch roles, say goodbye to your partner for now, because this is going to be the last practice coaching call that you have with them. And you want to make sure you follow the rest of the action steps as well, okay? Again, how long should they take? Try to knock them out back to back if possible, so that way you don't take a gazillion months to be able to get through this module. Again, I know you're going to do phenomenal. You're going to do great. I know I say it every single time, but I honestly genuinely mean it. We really thoroughly, really love seeing your guys' efforts inside of the student community when you're actually dropping them. It's helpful also. I know some students are looking at other students kind of coaching calls as well to be able to get inspiration, as you know, some students are struggling more than others, and that's perfectly fine. We're here together as a family to be able to grow together. So just remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is what practice is here for, and I know you're going to absolutely crush it. From there, let's go ahead and talk about your action steps. Number one, make sure you watch and study this training in full. Make sure you go ahead and save all of the appropriate documentation inside of the appropriate Google Drive folder. Make sure you prepare your student action notes. You make sure you practice. If you have any questions, let us know inside of the post for this specific coaching call. Make sure you conduct your practice call with your partner, collect and give your thank you video. And then you want to make sure you post that thank you video inside of your Student Wins group, either on WhatsApp or Telegram or whatever you decided to do. Upload your practice coaching call to YouTube, and then you want to go ahead and make sure that you comment on the student community with your recording as well as your takeaways, okay? So this has been coaching call number 6. This is the second set of the 3 coaching calls that are kind of following that sequence. And you can see here, these 3 coaching calls, the ones that we talked about, 4, 5, and 6, were heavily related to identity work and really laying those foundations. And then from here on out, we're going to be able to go more into the health side of things. But these last 3 calls were in depth. They were super dense, but they were absolutely critical to the transformation process. Okay, so with that being said, this is Coach Yasin checking out, and I will catch you inside of the next training.